I can't put this one on the defense. I made a gag about the joke, but I didn't think the defense arguably played its best game against a good opponent last night. Well, the offense wasn't great, but still, they played their best game. In terms of the offense, you can start in a couple of places. Joey Aguilar got greedy through 2 bad interceptions into coverage. Josh Heupel told ESPN at one point at the halftime that he was having trouble identifying the safety when he rotated. I thought he looked rattled in the second half. To start the second half, he comes out. He doesn't know which of these 2 receivers he's throwing to. The ball lands between 2 of them. And then Kirk Herbstreit points out on the touchdown where they hit Staley and Staley bounces off 2 guys. You had Brazel open on the other side. He took the short route, and he's lucky that Staley didn't get creamed. So he looked rattled, I thought. But that's what happens when your offensive line gets you crushed all day, which Josh Heupel also mentioned at halftime, that he was getting pressure in his face and they needed to protect him better. So, Will, I ask you, where are you starting? Are you starting with Joey Aguilar having his worst game as a Vol, or are you starting with the offensive line for being complicit in that?
I start with Joey Aguilar because look at the first play of the game. Right into the dirt, backwards pass kind of thing. I mean, I think you look at his game, he had a very bad game. He couldn't read. He made a lot of really bad throws and bad decisions. And I just look at it as if you didn't go into that game plan knowing I was not going to get pressured, you were going up against an NFL defensive line in Oklahoma. If I'm not sitting there going, hey, my offensive line is going to make me do some pressure and I'm going to have to do some things with that pressure, then I think you weren't ready for this game. So I look at this game as mostly on Aguilar, not as much on the offensive line.
Bob.
I kind of think that Oklahoma's defense had a lot more to do with Aguilar being off than just the pressure, because as you're sitting there watching it, right at the snap, a lot of movement on their defense. And so I think it got him confused. So you add confusion with pressure, and you end up throwing in between guys, throwing passes that you're kind of going, okay, who was that even intended for? Don't know if they had it on television, but one time the ref came on the mic in the stadium and said that's not intentional grounding. Number 8 was in the area because the pass just looked like, I'm just throwing this dang thing away just to get it out of my hand. So I think it was on Aguilar, but it wasn't all the offensive line, because you're watching an Oklahoma defense that on 2, 3, maybe more occasions looked like they knew exactly where he wanted to go with football.
He also had a throw that was bailed out by a defensive interference call where he literally, it was a punt. He just threw it up for grabs and they got the flag. Mike Stoll, you and I were talking last night at halftime, and Brent Venables brought everything. In that first quarter, it was through the kitchen sink. And Tennessee found holes, found the holes in the zone, made him pay. So then he started dropping everybody. Aguilar kept going for the money shot. You come back and you got a third quarter where he doesn't bring it, but then the fourth quarter he dials it back up again. I thought Venables last year. I thought Heupel outcoached Venables, and it's not just the scoreboard. Sometimes you can lose a game and still outcoach the other guy. Lane Kiffin against Alabama a few years ago. But in this case, it's just the scoreboard. I thought Heupel beat Venables head-to-head last year. I thought Venables got the best of Heupel last night.
Yeah, 100%. And when you go back to Aguilar or the offensive line, I got to put it on the offensive line.
Says the former offensive line.
Yeah, 100%, because they were throwing blitzes early on, and they were picking it up, but then they started making busts. They started doing some things with protection where, you saw an offensive guard, you help out, and then you look for a linebacker. If there's another linebacker coming, hit the guy. Right? And so you're leaving your running back to have to pick up these things. So I put it on the offensive line. First interception on Aguilar. Second interception, Aguilar even said, hey, I was throwing it. I was trying to get into it. I was being hit as I threw the ball, and the ball sailed on me. That's on the offensive line. I just don't like the way that they played. I said it last week. If they can handle themselves up front, they win the game. They did.
You called it.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
We've talked about the defense at times being feast or famine, right?
Yeah.
I thought Aguilar was a little bit of that, because he threw for 390-something yards. He threw 3 touchdowns. He had 5 different receivers with at least 50 yards.
Beautiful pass. You can't throw it any better than that last touchdown to Matthews, I guess.
Right.
The one was beautiful.
But the mistakes he made overshadowed the positives that he had. The sacks that he took, the interceptions. You mentioned one of them where he was pressured. He threw that ball up. That second interception was, to me, inexcusable.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't have done that. He did mention that Oklahoma threw some twists that stopped the run game, because Tennessee they were not effective running the football. They averaged, the running backs averaged 2.85 yards a carry. That's it. But they threw a lot of looks at him. He did not spot the safety on that one interception that he threw, the first one. So there was a mixture of the good Joey, bad Joey, but there was too much bad Joey for Tennessee to overcome what he did. And Oklahoma had a ton of penalties, which it had to overcome to beat Tennessee at Neyland Stadium.
On terms of Aguilar, I want to be fair because he's really been the MVP of the season. You've gotten so much more out of him. He has played so much better than I anticipated for a guy who didn't have an off season with you. Came in for the last 3 months, or not even a full 3 months, I don't guess. I think he's been really good. However, during the off season, some of us dared to say, boy, he throws a lot of interceptions. And we were like, that won't happen. Stop being negative. You're not going to hear that. Yeah. Okay, now he's got 8 interceptions. That's the most since Jarrett Garantano in a Tennessee uniform in 2019. You've still got 3 games to go. 5 of those interceptions came against Georgia and Oklahoma, which were both Georgia. You still should have won that one. If you kick the field goal, you win it. Right. But if you take one of those picks away, you probably win the game. Last night, you take 1 or 2 of those. You take the picks away, you probably win the game. So, it's the part of being a quarterback. When you're winning, put your face on Mount Rushmore. When you're losing, you got to ride the blame. You got to grab the blame.
Well, and I go back to what I said earlier, that he melted down. You could see it. You could see
it was
on the
rattle
field.
coming out at halftime.
You could see him sort of just, it's not there. But bad as the offensive line played, and as bad as he played at times, what Oklahoma did on defense, I thought was just, okay, this is what SEC defense looks like at the upper division. I think Oklahoma's offense is kind of crappy.
Yeah.
But their defense, and so, you kind of, to me, it was the first time he saw that because Georgia's defense, when Tennessee played them, wasn't where they're at now. Yeah. Alabama's defense isn't as good as Oklahoma's. So I think this is the top of what he's going to see.
I think this is also a reminder. We talked last week about how SEC games are getting much more close, like 10 points and less of the average margin of victory. But I think this is also a reminder that you never see the same team twice. Yeah. This Oklahoma team has it's one of the best defenses in the country. Now, they got pro prospects all over the place. They came in leading the SEC in total defense, scoring defense, rushing defense, passing defense, number 1 in tackles for loss, number 2 in sacks, I believe. And yet, because they had lost to Ole Miss the weekend before, it's like, their defense isn't real. I think sometimes, and you use this phrase, and I think it's perfect, sometimes you just have a bad day at the office. And I think when you're playing in this kind of a league, teams are going to have bad days at the office. And maybe that was Tennessee's last night. Maybe Oklahoma's was against Texas. But you're not going to see, it's not like a baseline, this team does this, they will come in and perform this way. You just don't see that. I thought bad for Tennessee is you got the good end of that Oklahoma defense, whereas it didn't show up against Texas and Oklahoma and Ole Miss.
I just remember the stat the guy told me when I was playing in the NFL. He said in the NFL, if you take nothing else out of the game, if you have 3 turnovers, you had an 80% chance of losing the game. Yeah. So as soon as you hit that 3 number, you're not winning this game. And so if you look at it, if the SEC is getting tighter in the amount of scores, then the turnovers become even more paramount, like an NFL game, that if you hit that 3 number, the chances of you winning any one of these games is very, very low.
We did that with Mr. SEC, the website, a few years back where I went through 10 years of SEC play. Now, this was 15 years ago, so that would have been going back 25 years. But I bet the numbers haven't changed in that it's what you're talking about. In SEC versus SEC games, if you're -1 in the turnover margin, you got about a 75% chance of winning. If you're -2, you got about a 34% chance. If you're -3, you got a 10%.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah. If you want to, 10% if you want to take it. Your thoughts on the go ahead, Jimmy.
I was going to say, and one of their best defensive players, Mason Thomas, he hardly played. He had that touchdown. He pulled his hamstring. He didn't play the rest of the way. And he's a really good football player.
They were missing another one of the better players, one of the best linebackers as well.
They dressed out and didn't play. I mentioned it to you. The team that makes the fewest mistakes will win, right? Turn over the ball, you're not going to win, period.
It's a maxim. Somebody should say that before games. Okay, very good.